You have chosen this video because it's the first in a series of challenges. This is possibly the easiest one of the challenges that we've got. There is another one which is identical in code to this one, but it's going to move an enemy up and down as opposed to right and left, which is the purpose of this video. We're going to move an enemy right and left. We're going to have him here. He's going to keep moving backwards and forwards there, blocking the path of Mario. So this is the first challenge. Your maze may look a little bit different to mine, but really if you're going to be doing the horizontal one, you need to look for places where you have a horizontal or left to right gap in your maze. So let's just go through what we should have by now. This is the end of activity 7. You should have your player. You should have the 4 costumes for Mario going up, down, left and right. You should have your maze with at least 3 costumes. The more the better. You should have named your maze. You should have named your player, and each costume should be named as well. Level 1, level 2, level 3 and so on. This is quite important as it affects the code that we do. It makes the code easier to read. So the first thing I'm going to do is tidy up some of the code, the scripts for the player. Here in this code block we have got a right arrow, left arrow, up arrow, down arrow. They're all to do with movement, and then I've got another one down the bottom called touching maze. What happens if I touch the maze? So I'm going to split these two, or this, into 2 parts. One that's just going to deal with moving the character up, down, left or right, and another block which is going to deal with just touching the maze. So basically I need exactly the same thing. Go into events, dragging out of when clicked, control, get to forever, and all I'm going to do is drag the touching part into a separate block. Now what this enables us to do is we can control the sprite for whatever he touches. We can just keep all of that code in one block. So if he touches the maze, if he touches the enemy, if he touches the end of the level, it's all contained in this block. So that's my first change. We are going to create a new sprite. We're going to have a new sprite on the screen. So if we just create a brand new sprite, and we can call this a blocker because that's what he's going to do, and we can call it sort of a horizontal blocker. I'm just going to say HBlocker so I know what its purpose is. And I'm going to get some new costumes for my blocker, and we're going to do it exactly the same as we got the Mario costume. So we're going to upload costumes from a file. We need to find them. They're in computer science, year 8 or year 9 if you're in year 9, term 1, lesson 3, and we have 4 here. So the D stands for down, L stands for left, R for right, U for up. We're only interested in moving left and right, so I only need 2 of them this time. So I'm going to click on the E to L, and there I have my little character. Let's move him into position now. And I can do the same. I can get the version going right, open that up, and there we go. So now I've got 2 costumes, him facing left, him facing right. So that's my first activity with what I'm doing. What I need to do now is place some code on the actual blocker to make him move left and right on his own without us touching any keys or doing anything with him. So I'm going to go to scripts, and we're going to do it when we click the green flag, and basically he's going to do it forever while the game is playing. That's what that really means. We're going to do a few if statements with this one. So I'm going to pull out an if then statement. But this is a more challenging piece of coding, and we're going to use variables a great deal in this coding. So I'm going to go to data to create some new variables. So I'm going to make a variable for this one, and I'm going to call it direction, and I'm going to make it for this sprite only. That is really, really important that you just create it for this sprite and click OK. Again, we can take it off the screen by taking the tick out of the box. So the direction is going to be which direction is he facing, which direction is he moving, and there are two directions in this one. One of them is going left, and for this sprite only, and the other one is when he goes right. So for this sprite only, I'll have a variable called right. So I can change his direction to left or right. Let's take that off the screen. Now, as with our player, we had a sort of set up his position to begin with. Everything to do with setting the player up was here. We're going to do the same with the blocker. So back onto the blocker, if I go and get another event block when clicked, I'm going to set him up to begin with. I need to know his position. So if I click on the little blue arrow here, that's where I want him to be. Click on the little blue information symbol. I've got some values here. 200 for the X and minus 28 for the Y. So if I go to the motion blocks, I can get that. There we go. So that's the first thing I need to do, is when I click the green flag, put him in that position. The next thing I need to do is change his speed. So I need another variable. Now we had a speed variable for the Mario character, and we're going to have another speed variable which is actually different, it's not the same one, for this character, for the enemy. So the enemy can travel at a different speed to Mario, so we could slow it down and give Mario more chance to get through. So I'm going to set my speed. I'm going to set it slower. I think we set Mario to 5. We could set this to 2 or even lower, really doesn't matter. You can change these values and see what happens. The next thing I'm going to do is just give some values to left and right. So I'm going to pull out another set, and I'm going to change that to left. I'm going to keep that at 0, and I'm going to get another one and change that one to right, and I'm going to change the value to 1. It doesn't really matter what values we use, as long as they're different. Left and right are different. The last thing I'm going to do in setting things up is I'm going to set the direction. So there we go. I'm going to set the direction, and I could use numbers, but I'm actually going to use a variable. I'm going to set the direction to left. So the first thing he's going to do is travel left. And if I'm doing that, I really need him facing left. His little eye is facing right at the moment, so maybe I'll change his costume to facing left. There we go. Notice I had a costume 1 there. I don't really want costume 1, so if we click on costumes, I can click on that costume and delete it. So that's setting this character up. So I've set the speed and I've set his direction to left when we click the green flag. So now I'm going to fill in this box, this if box, in this little, it's called a lozenge, it looks like a little diamond, and I'm going to get an operator, and I'm going to get the equal sign, because what I'm going to say is if the direction is equal to left, or if the direction is equal to right, change the X value. So back to data, and I'm going to put in there, if the direction is equal to left, and we could just duplicate this. If you right click, you can duplicate it. I'm not going to do that in a moment. I'm going to go through it nice and slowly. So that's my first one. I'm going to paste it in that little lozenge there, and then I'm going to change the direction. Now if he's going left, if you remember when we did the player, okay, let's go over to the player, let's take a look at what happened when the player was going left. We had speed times -1, change x by speed times -1, and we need exactly the same thing on here. So let's first of all go and get the minus operator inside there, put our speed, and then just type, oops, I've got the wrong one there. The operator should be the times one. Same thing, speed times -1. Okay, so I need that, and I also need my change x by. There we go, and I'm going to change x by speed times -1. That means he's going left, and the rate he's going left at is 2. So it's 2, 0, -2, -4, -6, and so on. So if I place that in there, I've now got what happens if he's going left. I'm going to do the same for him going right. So drag out another if block, drag out another equals. If the direction is equal to right, then we're going to change the x value by, and if you remember on the player, when we went right, and this is right here, we can't see it under there, right, we only change it by speed. So going back to the HBlocker, I'm just going to change that by speed. So there we go, we've got him moving left and we've got him moving right. However, that's not good enough. If I did that, he would just whiz off the edge of the page. Let's see if that works. Let's put that in there and click the green flag. There you go, he's just going to whiz straight through the maze. So we've now got to check what happens when he touches the maze. So just like the Mario, we need a touching block. We need two, because we need to know when he's touched it on the left, and we need to know when he's touched it and he's moving right. So I'm going to get another if block, and if you remember how we did this, if touching maze, which is why we named things. Now that's not good enough. I can't just have touching maze. I really want to know if I'm moving right and I'm touching the maze, or if I'm moving left and I'm touching the maze. And there's a special block to do that, and it's called this AND block. So if I'm touching the maze and my direction is, so I need another equal sign because I need these two statements here. I could duplicate them, but I'm just going to type them out or drag them out from here. And my direction is equal to left. And we're going to be doing exactly the same for the right. So now I'm saying if I'm touching the maze and I'm going left, what I need to do is turn him around and go back the other way. So let's just put that into the block. So how am I going to turn him around? That is just a case of saying set the direction to, well, if I'm going left, I need to be going turn round, going right. Set the direction to right. I also need to turn his costume around so he faces the other way. So I'm going to get another costume for that. Switch the costume to right. And the last thing I need to do is just bounce him off the wall. If I don't bounce him backwards, he will always be touching the maze and the game won't work. So you might like to try without, but I'm just going to change the X value just by speed. So he's going to bounce off the wall a little bit. And that's it. That's my that's handling what happens when he's going left, and we can see that. So if I drag him back and click the green flag, he's going to go across, hit the wall and bounce, turn around. Now I've got to do the right hand side because he's decided to disappear again. So same thing again, control, if I need the AND block because I'm doing two things, and if I am touching the maze, whoops, that's fallen out. Let's get that in there. not enough screen. If I am touching the maze, and remember I've got to check if my direction is equal to, so I need the equals block, then I need the direction is equal to, and it's exactly opposite to this one. So if I'm going right, I can place that in there. So if I'm touching the maze and my direction is right, then I need to turn him round. So I need to set the direction to left. I need to change his costume so he faces the other way, to left, and finally I just need to bounce him off the wall a little bit, and I actually need this one here. I could duplicate it again, but I'm going to write it out just for the fun of it. So change x by, gives you lots of practice doing this. Get the times one out, get the speed times -1, and just drop it into place, and there we go. So if I drag that into my block, I now have the left, right, and what happens when he's touching the maze when he's moving. So let's see that work. So click the green flag, there he goes, he's going left, going right, and he's going left again. So that at the moment is my enemy. The only problem I've got is when I'm moving my Mario. Now you can do this, you can drag your Mario. If I drag him into position there, notice that the enemy is just running over him. It is not happening. So I've got to change some code in my Mario. So when my Mario is touching the enemy, or the HBlocker, he goes back to the start. So let's pop over to Mario's code. And remember we did this. So we separated out the touching from the moving. And basically all I'm going to be doing this is the same as this. I could again just duplicate these statements, that would be fine, but I'm going to do them one by one. If touching, I'm going to give you a guess here, HBlocker, yeah, we need to switch the costume for him looking down. Remember, because he's going back to the start, so he needs to be facing you. Switch the costume down, and then I need to go to XY, and I'm using variables instead of hard numbers. So there we go, X position, X start position, and the Y start position. So that's my code built. Drop it into the block, and now let's just start the game again. If I drag my Mario close, I'm not touching him, let's move him in the way, and boom, he's back to the start. So there we go, I've got my blocker blocking his path. If he touches the blocker, he's going to go back to the start, and the blocker just runs from left to right. If you want to, you can have a look at the vertical blocker, or you can move on to a harder challenge, which is changing levels in the maze.